puzzles. The speed at putting puzzles together. Crosswords, the cross, right? The vertical rod and the horizontal stabilizer inside of a cell. So when I did the video on Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the governor of Arkansas, and you get into letters and numbers, formatting, holographic formatting, architecture, and this goes back some years ago, and I've covered it in a couple other videos about language of sound and light, and the original founder's language of sound and light, or the mathematics or the language of software, right? Programmers. The cursor line, the command line, okay, of what to build. So I know we've had a number of discussions in the shamanic community, those that are spiritual warriors, although I don't use the word war. And so I don't like to, even I just got done using it. So I have to catch myself on the language that I allowed myself to be programmed, load into memory, and then run the programming to see how the programming works, if you will. It's when you're collecting an enormous amount of data at a monad level of how they put this system together and how many error codes are represented by how many error codes are being run by genetic engineers or the gene codes, you know, a drive motor, the drive motor that is running the codes, the DNA, the assembly, the temple. Yeah. And so I was reminded, if you remember, back when President Bill Clinton, who is, you know, with the Queen's side of the family, yeah, and who's the Rockefeller family, those folks. And if you remember when he was providing a deposition, remember with the Lewinsky affair, when President Clinton was being impeached, when all that was going down. And some of you may not remember this, okay? But actually, this is very critical because when they get into these depositions in courtrooms about winning arguments between computers, right? And so President Clinton said when he had been sworn in, so he's under oath, yeah, and he answered a question that was posed to him when he answered it thusly: it depends on what you mean by what is. Now we're back to defining your terms. In other words, your idea of what a definition is not the same as mine, because I use the language of sound and light as to what it means to me by virtue of what I use my consciousness energy to run as codes, which is the language, which is not the same as yours. So now we got to get into the language of DNA, which is the language of fire and ice, or fire and water. Now we're back to programming. Now we're back to DNA programmers. Now we're back to genetic engineers. The language is being run. And so this becomes what I call convoluted. So what you find out is these are AI wargamers, right? AI integrated. And so it becomes almost impossible to argue when you define the word what an argument is. Because an argument in computer terms is not the same thing when you think, I'm going to have a debate with you. Now we're playing ping pong, right? You think this is true. I think something else is true based on what I experienced versus what you experienced and recorded in your cellular memory. And the language of what we call a common ground, like being grounded. The language of love, the language of eternal love, the language of absolute pure love. So now we're back into frequencies. Now we're back into frequency modulation. Now we're back into radio sets. Light spirit body, right? Solar arcing, powerful scalar waves, which are log scales, the exponent, the acceleration, right? Filling up capacitors on a motherboard, which is healing. So what happens is you end up in what's called wasting energy because you're going in a circular argument. You're going round and round and round, and you're not getting anywhere with these folks. And why is it? Because they can't translate the frequencies, which is the codes that we're using to communicate with them, because their mic is muted. Now we're into repairables and non-repairables. Now we're into no implosion and implosion. Yeah. As it relates to what? Seated races. Raw C, and how we use those letters to define the terms. Raw, R-A-C-E. And then you can associate a number with that, like a complex number. So the function of what? The number 4. What is 4? Now you can get into the geometry of that, right? 3 points on a triangle, like nodes. Hey, one node is connecting to another node by virtue of a line between one and the other. And how that relates to structural integrity as a foundation that can hold, right? Mass, the balance, right? Between magnets. Perfect balance. Calm. The nerves are calm. The nerves are calm. So this is how you're map reading the language of the battleground. Speech, yeah. Speakerphones. So I'm reminded when I was a child, silence is golden. Right? You don't have to say a word to know what's going on when your sensors are fully activated. Right? Your antenna is picking it up, the consciousness field, and maintaining the balance between the poles. Right? Your ladder. Just like you see a ladder on a fire truck. Climbing the ladder, right? The sticks in the horizontal climb the ladder. Have a beautiful day. We love you all. Be good to yourselves.